The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.
Hello, West Michigan. This is GRTV Media Business TV. My name is Pamela Keim, your host. The spirit of the show is to introduce West Michigan to all the businesses, nonprofits, individuals that can help us thrive in our lives. We have a very special guest for you today, and we've had him on my show once before, but he has a lot going on, and he is Tony Rubleski, who is a motivational coach. He is a personal development. He is a business coach. He is an event planner. He is a best-selling author. I can go on and on and on. He is well known throughout our country and especially in West Michigan. So he is going to be here today to share with us his new book, what he has going on, and what everyone learned at his recent boot camp, Mind Capture Boot Camp event. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here. You did nice. There's a lot to keep up there. I was like, wow, thank you.
Well, I have to kind of go from memory, and sometimes when you're friends with somebody, as we have been for years, I don't always remember all those, you know, when people say, why don't you tell us about this and tell us about that? I'm like, okay, okay. We are going to make this a two-part interview because you came in from Grand Haven to be in my studio. You've never been here before.
This is nice.
Correct?
Thank you for the invitation. This is really cool.
And you were our last time I interviewed you were at the Grand Castle, which was a great venue for that too, and you've been there many times. But this is where I call home now, and everybody's very kind, and I'm able to sit with a fireplace.
I say it's even warm and inviting too, so this
and
is
have
great.
A conversation. And I'm just going to start. Let's just go right off. You've got, you know, we've known each other for a few years. And you have a lot going on, and the first time I met you is that you actually discovered me out in the world of doing events because you thought, oh my gosh, my first event at the Grand Castle. You saw it all over social media, and I appreciate you reaching out. And it's been a great friendship ever since. You know my husband David well. All right, so let's talk about what's going on and who is Tony Rubleski today.
Well,
a lot has changed in the last 2 years, but still, who is Tony Rubleski? And we're going to be talking about his new book, Positive Disruption. This is volume 2, and you have in front of you my copy of volume 1. But there's so much going on with your life, and I can't keep up with it. So if I forget something, please share it with me.
Well, thank you again for the invitation. Not a problem. First and foremost, what a great studio. And those that are catching this either online or when it airs, you know, thanks for checking out. The whole goal is anytime I get a chance to put the word out there is that someone takes an idea or two from me.
Right.
So the best thing I could say is the last couple of years, like everybody else, it's about adapting and putting out a couple of books and doing an annual event, which we just did a few weeks ago in Traverse City. You were there.
Yes.
It's kind of like we'll catch our breath maybe around Christmas. But I'd look at it as an honor and really a privilege to go out and be able to create and people that enjoy what I do. There are a lot of artists, writers, speakers, musicians that have a tough road. So when I get a chance to come on a great program, if it's podcast, television, this format, or even sometimes in other studios, I never take it for granted. And I look at the fact that we're in this war of attention right now, where we have about 9 seconds on average. I mean, I grab my phone here; it's turned off, but you know, we're so addicted to doing this. And the amount of stimulation we get here in the U.S. alone, it's like 50 to 60,000 conversations in our own head, 5,000 ads a day on average. These are the latest statistics, Pamela, that come at us. So I'm very cognizant of the fact that if someone's doing something, you've got to be really standing out or getting mind capture for them to pay attention. So this type of interview where we get a little bit more time, hopefully for the audience, whatever their life goals are, something resonates and going, I can relate to that. You know what? That's something new. Or you know what? I haven't thought of it that way.
Right.
And that's really the goal as a teacher. You know, you mentioned the introduction, thank you, speaker, best-selling author.
Yes, you're on your 8th book. I had it wrong last year.
That's all right, it's all right.
8th, and you're like, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It is your 8th book on that one. But I will tell you, when we did meet, and before pre-COVID, right, everything was just going crazy. Everybody was doing very well, and I'm not saying that they're not today. It's just different today.
Correct.
I think like you mentioned, that people are, you know, want to get their attention, whatever, and you really don't get to know the person, and almost like you have to be like, entertain me, like do a magic trick, make me want to watch you, right? And I think that we've lost something, but as you're talking about, you yourself understand, because your attention is now focused in a million different directions with the new book out, with the interviews I see you on, the travel, and trying to connect with your audience to bring them something. But what else can you share with the attention that you see us going with? You know, it's not good, but what are you going to do about, because your attention's the same as all of ours.
What I write about and share and teach around the world is the same struggle that I deal with, and our team does too. So I think if anything, there's this image out there that people say, well, your life's perfect, you've already made it, you've done this and that. Well, we still have to work very, very hard. Anytime we put a book out like we did this week, as we tape this, there's a lot of moving pieces, many months of work to get it to hit the deadline. And then we do programs, we do interviews such as this, those that are welcoming to us, plus we get inquiries that come in that are brand new, so we have to sort. But I think the big thing is right now, the last couple of years we've learned that a lot of the external things we keep reaching for aren't as fulfilling as we thought. So the whole premise behind Volume 1 and the new book, Volume 2, is to go inward, to get selfish with your own time and your own program, where you say, you know what, I'm going to sit down maybe quietly in the morning at lunchtime or before I go to bed and, look at a quote that's motivational by nature, that's positive. Then we ask you a question, and in the actual book you have an area to journal and take notes. So
my pen in here.
Yeah, so I mean, I see that. That's awesome.
Well, yes, and I wanted to, I quickly, I was listening to somebody, and they're like, I went after my birthdays, my children's birthdays, what quotes, and it's kind of funny that the quote that on my birthday is kind of pertains to me.
Let's hear it.
You know what I mean? Well, let's talk about that. We'll talk about that. I want to talk about, basically, let's talk about what is positive disruption. Why did you pick positive disruption? And what does that mean when you go out and you speak and you go on TV? What are people asking you? What does that mean?
I think if anything, it came from an interview with Dan Kennedy, my central mentor of many, many years. And in the interview, 5 or 6 years back, I said something like, the mind capture or positive disruption. And in the interview, this is long before these books came to be, he said, I like that. And he stopped in the actual audio interview. And I thought, So a few years later, I was thinking, the title of a book is everything. It's like the title of a movie, the title of an album, a song. You have to get people's attention quickly. And I thought, this is a book of quotes and questions, like a journal, a daily devotional. How are you going to differentiate? COVID comes along. So the March of 2020, you and I were getting ready to do some stuff at the castle, some promotions, some events, and then all of a sudden, massive timeout globally. And writing the book in the summer of 2020, I thought, wow, how do we look at this negative? I kept hearing negative, disruption, and negativity is very much all over the dial. I thought, let's flip it. And I went, positive disruption. So the goal as a writer, and a lot of my writer friends will crack up at this, the title of the book and the images on the front and the back cover, the front and back jacket, have to really grab the right intended audience, okay? So I thought, there it is. All this negativity, let's make it into a positive. People are talking about the disruptions, positive disruption. Also, that's the way I'm wired, Pamela.
I know
I've been posting for a long time.
For what, 3 years now, 4 years? He's like this all the time, and I will have to tell you, during 2020, we both were like, you had certain lifelines that you could count on. Not everybody was able, all of us were trying to figure this out, such as you and I, and our meetings at the castle, just a total disruption. Did I know it was, did I call it a positive disruption? I probably, maybe some people would look back and say, as tragic as it was for many people, it was a disruption in how we were going, like we talked about. How are we going to handle this? What are we going to do? What are we going to, how are we going to move forward?
I think the big thing is this, is as I've turned 50 this summer, I'm grateful to have made it, but I'm also become more pragmatic. It doesn't mean I've lost the positivity in me. I think that the positive mindset is everything. The however is, as you age and the life starts to hit you, you're going to be confronted with challenges. And the entire world in 2020, and I think even into still late 21, was sort of like shell-shocked. Like, what's going on? All of our patterns got disrupted. The way we looked at relationships, you couldn't get near people, you couldn't hug each other, you couldn't in many parts of the world get together and assemble because of the distance rules that they had at that point. And I think now, looking back a couple years later in the rearview mirror, what are the lessons from it? I've said this with a lot of folks recently. My strong opinion, I don't think social distancing was as effective as people thought it was. We're built for connection. You and I talked about this. I did live events safely, not without a little bit of controversy. We did live business events during the pandemic. When everyone was like, no, you can't do a meeting, or, you know what, no one's getting together. Yeah. We did physical events. And it wasn't to like get political about it. There's three main things. I said this in South Bend, you were in the room.
Yeah.
I said, we're allowed freedom of expression in this country. Thank God for that. Second, we're allowed freedom of expression and assembly and speech like we're doing now. And that was as political as I took. I put that in one slide in November of 2020 in Michigan City at the event. I said, I don't want to get people fighting over politics because a lot of the politicians get everybody mad at each other. It's easy to get mad.
Us.
Oh, they love to do it.
And I don't need to know your politics if I feel you are you have a great business.
Yeah.
You have a great service. There's something successful that you're doing that I can say, oh, but I'm not going to listen to you because you're a certain. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You're doing something right. But when we were it was at Michigan City, correct? That on that one, and being with people was just, you realize how much you were like going. I would say we were all having like nervous breakdowns because we weren't around people, how much we needed people. I think the dread of getting up every day and not being able to go to our neighbors, not to engage in questions. You know, there's nothing, not that I wanted to criticize, I wanted to engage in questions that popped up in my head. I'm like, well, what is that? Why are we doing that?
Well, I think a big thing on that point is that it's okay to respectfully disagree.
Right.
We don't have to try to preach each other's viewpoints and convert people. The hardest part I've had now in this industry, 18 years full time, is that I love people. And I have fans that are far left, far right, Christians, non-Christians, Jewish, agnostic, non-believers, former addicts. And I look at them and I do my best not to judge. That's the human challenge every day of our life, is not to judge each other.
Right.
And we have a mass media that keeps telling, for the most part, we should be mad about this, resentful. It's your fault, not mine. At some point, this was the big genesis of Volume 1, the first book and that came out in 2020, was personal sovereignty, to take back and reclaim your own inner power, your own ideas, and to question things. And to, what I said earlier, get selfish, is to look for the internal answers you have, the genius. We're always looking external, I know, because I did it for years. I'd go to all the seminars, go to all the books, hire all kinds of coaches. Many of them were amazing to me. The however was, I would downplay my own talent. So I remember in the summer of 2020 and fall of 2020 going, is this like the Twilight Zone? Because everyone was freaked out. It was like, you get up at your house, you're like, what is going on here? Nothing's making sense.
Nothing's making sense.
And there's so many lessons in each of us, those that are actually watching as well. You're all going to draw your personal lessons from it like I did and like you did. And that's a good thing. And the whole thing is, I hit the road this coming up. I've got speaking dates next few weeks in Seattle, Myrtle Beach, St. Croix. Someone's got to do it. I'm grateful. Thank you. I'm from Michigan. If you can go to St. Croix in February, you get out of here.
Yes.
In those groups, what I find is people want to have a better life. They want to pursue their goals. Some are more vocal about it. Some are more modest. Some don't really tell you, but they just quietly work in the shadows and they get it done. I don't discount anybody. I've met people in this business that have literally lost their limbs, that have won marathons when people said they'd never race again, to a guy that was the Miracle on the Hudson. He was the last guy off the plane. And all these great motivational men and women from around the world teach me that the human spirit is alive and well. And especially in moments of crisis and uncertainty, which I believe we're still in.
Oh, right.
As we head into 23, we're taping this at the end of 22. I've kind of got the holiday spirit here and the fire. As we go into 23, it's not going to get any easier. The only thing we can control, I say this, you've seen me do it live, is this. What are you going to program each day? What books are you going to read? What people are you going to associate? What are you going to listen to around you? And what are you going to watch on your phone or your computer? It's imperative that we deliberately program positivity each day. If we don't and we float along, the negativity and the division will scare most people from making any progress to pursue what they really want to do, Pamela.
Well, when you look out in over the last year, I think 2 years with the personal development, you've met a lot of people, you've been on stage with a lot of people. Did you see what I'm saying is that how many of them are still in the position that you are in to keep going, to offer something to the public, and we'll talk about your book in more detail in a minute. But you might have noticed that they just kind of went away.
Yeah.
When it really came down to tough times, and I know people have told me, you know, it's really nice to have a leader that's in good times. You need a real strong leader like a Churchill, or, you know,
Yeah.
in really tough times. That's difficult. And it was difficult for you because people were calling you all the time. It's like, Coney, you got to get me through this. And you were trying to figure out how you're going to get your livelihood back.
Yeah.
What have you experienced over that?
I think if anything, there's a couple good things out of that question, because that's a hard-hitting question. And sometimes you get softball questions when I do podcasts.
Sorry.
No, this is good. I'll dig below the layers here, and whoever's watching this, I want to add as much value for their time.
Right.
Okay. I was very disappointed the first year of the pandemic because I saw a lot of people in my industry completely back away.
Right.
And I was more disappointed that this is when we need to step up. If we're in a belief in positivity and goals,
Mindset.
this is where the world needs it more.
Right.
And something that I even said even to last year when I was doing some speaking dates as events were turning back on more was, where are the leaders? Privately, because I don't name names, I saw lots of CEOs, nonprofit executive directors completely hide in their office.
Yeah,
They
I saw that too.
disappeared. I don't know if it was their in-house corporate counsel telling them you can't say this, but where were the leaders at? There were a few, but you had to look really, really hard to find them. And as we go in now to 23, new leaders will emerge that will take the place of those that appeared before the pandemic to have it all together and clearly showed they didn't. And I think the lesson from that is people want to find someone to believe in many ways,
Right.
that they can look up to, because we see right now with the way the economy is going in, and you see scams, it seems like every other week there's something new with this company going down or someone being frauded. People want to find the authentic leaders. Many of them have been made the last 2 years. They'll start to appear in 23 and 24. And some of the old leaders that we may have revered are kind of exiting stage left, because they
Well, I
kind
think
of like the
because-
emperor has no clothes.
Right. That's exactly what I saw. And I thought some of the people that I, would think that they would emerge
Yeah.
and get us through the last couple years, I was, I was noticing that. And then I'm like, it's really easy to sell this stuff that you have
times
been
are good,
part
yeah.
of. When times are good, and just get up and just do it and have the courage. And all of a sudden, then you turn around and you're like, where are you people when we're looking? It's not like I needed you to do the work for me.
Correct.
I needed to know that you were out there too.
Yep.
That's what I wanted. Say, Tony's out there, I can be out there. Maybe you were further down the road, but at least I could see a little bit of a glimpse of a light. Just keep following the path, keep doing what you're doing and whatever, and that's what our friendship brought. But on other people that I looked at them and thought they had it all put together, I didn't see that in
Yep.
2020.
I want to add to this as well. I think it's a key point that I had to go through personally last summer was to forgive people.
Yes,
People
I do
grant me
believe that.
forgiveness. I'm grateful for it. But I had to look beyond those things that I really scratched my head the first year of the pandemic and went, where are they? And go, they were doing the best they could. There might have been things that I don't know or am privy to that they couldn't do things because of compliance, maybe the way the government rules and regulations, maybe their board of directors. And it's saying it's okay to let that go. And it's not to be mean, because I was this is going to sound strange, a little resentful towards certain industries last summer. I was like, I don't know if I'll work with certain companies again. But I thought time heals.
Right.
And again, as we open things back up, it's okay to say, you know what, we all learned from that, and no one's perfect. The main core of these books is about our spirituality, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not a preacher, I'm a teacher. Let me repeat that. People think you sound like a preacher. No, I believe that people should have a spiritual path of some kind. I know mine.
Right.
However, when people are spiritually grounded, they typically have more morals to be more grounded with each other.
They have
and
more
not
depth, I think.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's not, to me, it gives them more of a footing that they can also go deeply internal when they have their spiritual light turned on. Whatever faith walk or choosing they have, I think it helps the human race to move forward, is to have that moral compass is what I'm looking for, is the spirituality in check. And there are a lot of people that I've seen the last couple of years that are really struggling because there's no spiritual grounding there. It's like they're walking on an earthquake and
Right.
they don't know what to do because they're relying only on themselves. And we look at this taping, for example, there's people in the control room, there's you that brought me on, there's people that will air
Studio,
it.
the people that put this all
It's about
together.
people
Right, yes.
coming together. It's not just the Tony Show, okay? I'm the lead maybe guy in this episode, but it takes a cast to pull it off. A team like you that invites me, the host, the sponsors, the team that's doing production, you, the viewer watching. And some of my mentors the last couple of years have said, hey, you are out there promoting, but never forget to thank people. that help you and support you. Kelsey Sanders, the new book, she helped co-write a lot of the book, the questions. So she gets a writing credit. And I look at that and go, it's not just the Tony Show.
Okay, let's talk about your book, because that's what we want to. All right, Positive Destruction. It is full of what? Quotes.
Yeah.
Now, last year, on your pull up that one, people submitted quotes.
Yep.
How did this go this year?
We did the same thing. We had about 10 people that submitted quotes. Some were original quotes that they put in the new book, and then some were from public domain. But essentially, it's a daily devotional of quotes. You have basically the quote to start the day, and then you have a question.
Right, right.
So to me, I really want someone to do their best to engage, because the book is about them.
Right.
I mean, it's
but
not
we
like...
all see quotes when we're out there, but why quotes?
I think it's because they do a spark. They're simple and they're short. And someone reads it and they can relate to it. There's a relatability factor. Sometimes the quote gets us to think completely different. It gets us sometimes happy, upset, or gets us going, I never thought of it from that perspective. So a few simple sentences or a couple of sentences in a quote can really get people engaged, and then you add a question to it, it can get the wheels turning.
All right, well, the goal on January 3rd is my birthday.
Awesome.
And so the quote is, the goal without a plan is just a wish. Now that makes sense because, you've been around me for a long time and you got, what's the plan? What does it look like to do this, Pamela? Where do you see yourself? So it's always like, just kind of, it's a wish, but you got to get to implement the plan, right? You have to figure out and I appreciate that. And so I'm going through this thing. I looked up all my children's birthdays to see who was. Well, and David's.
Yep.
And it was fine too. But this book is full of quotes. Be able to write what your thoughts are. Engage in that. And I think sometimes a quote is just a sentence or two where it just hits the nail on the nail on the head. Or how's that go?
That'll work.
Yeah, and people at their time in their life, sometimes a quote comes across and you're like, but very wise, some, or have gone through some difficult times, are very successful.
The other thing I look at, Pamela, is that whatever gets someone moving forward progress, the biggest challenge is our self-talk. Most of the time, until you become aware of it, our biggest enemy or critic is our inner voice.
Right.
It's, you can't do that. How dare you? Well, what would your family think? Or, oh my gosh, I don't want to get in trouble. Or, that's against company policy. I'm not advocating, hold on, we're on television, you break company policy. Let's get this clear. What I'm saying is if you have a great idea, you should be able to share it. And know that not everyone's going to roll the red carpet out and want to do it, but if you believe in it, you're going to have to sell it. You're going to have to maybe reattack it, come at it with a different strategy, maybe tweak the idea or the plan, and keep persisting. The biggest myth people have is that in writing and speaking that, hey, it's really easy. There's like 5,000 books a week put out in North America. It's crowded.
Well, think how many you own yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do say that you could read a book for like two or three chapters and get what you need out of it.
Yeah.
And go back to it. You understand that, right?
Yep.
Go back to it 2 years later or 3 years, and you just start picking up where you left off. And like, why didn't I ever finish this book?
Yep.
It's probably at that time I didn't need it, but I need it today.
Well, I often say it's right in the front of both of these books is that the world is already complex and noisy enough. The book by design is real simple. I want people to get hooked like an addict, where every day they go, they look forward to it. And many times I've gotten feedback in emails and texts and messages that, you know what, I look back through the last few months and I'm amazed at what I journaled. So it's a great tool of self-reflection that only the reader knows, he or she, because it's their own life story. And again, I'll light the match and get the party started, get the fire lit. This is great visual here. But it's up to the reader, he or she, to run with it. I'm seeing a lot of companies that are like, we want 300. We want all of our company employees to at least have a copy or have access to it. And I know not every employee is going to do it, but it's never ceases to amaze me when I get some strange email. I'll give you a quick example. A few months ago, a gal up in Alberta, Canada, sent me a message to say, hey, I need 5 more books because we had she lost her son in a car accident. Okay. Got hit by a car. And she goes, I like this book to help ground me, but I want to have, I'm paraphrasing here, and especially also for anonymity, I need 5 more books for my family because we're having a tough time processing this. I didn't know the book would take that meaning for her. I can't imagine with losing any of my 3 kids. It's something I just don't have a realm of understanding. I hope I never have to go through it. But the book is speaking to her where she wants to use it to give to someone else in her circle, her family, to deal with grieving.
Right.
I didn't know that. I've had trained therapists say, look, this is a great book that we recommend to some of our clients. I'm like, wow, I didn't know I was a psychoanalyst or a therapist.
Well, you don't know how you're touching people, but
Yeah.
even to take this and put it by your coffee. I have it downstairs in our cigar lounge that we have. Don't even don't judge me on that. But just to read and self-reflect for a moment in the morning, or before you go to bed, or after you have dinner. Just something that's your thoughts.
Yeah.
And it brings you into a different idea. Write some things down, and then to look back at it a year from now and just say, I wonder what I was thinking back then, on that day. But to write something like that.
And there's action. There's action steps. Somebody say, reach out to 3 people to say thank you today, or who do you need to extend a gratitude note or an email or a text. We also want people to take some action through that, and then they look forward to it.
Right.
And again, I go back to the fact that the world is just getting faster and faster. These mobile devices are a great tool, but they're also a great curse. There's a paradox with the cell phones.
With any invention that man has,
And we have so much stimulation coming at us now that to deliberately slow down, people go, how do I do it? I'm like, schedule it. Make your morning time. I do my gratitude list in the morning, my prayers and meditations, the books. And I literally sit down and write down what I'm grateful for each day. It's on the airplane with me.
Who decided the cover? Because to pick up that one, that was an amazing cover when it came out. But who decided the cover? You?
Well, we have final say as the author and creator, but Larry Helmling out of Chicagoland did both covers. And you kind of give her a vision, then she'll give you a few different looks or mock-ups.
Okay.
And I remember in the late summer of 2020 when she sent this, we knew. I was like, there it is. It's kind of like the person walking into the light.
And
because
you get a lot of compliments because I know people say that when I have it with me.
It's a very
cool
different looking cover, and people think, my other covers are more corporate business style.
Right.
That I wanted something that would get people to go, what is that? Or that looks almost like sci-fi.
Is that, the ocean? Is that who's in that? Is that Tony's image in there?
Yep.
You look and you always. It's something you can stare at for a long period of time and just imagine what it could be. Now, this is a typical, this one I love, we all love, I do, I like trees. I don't know why, but it's probably because, they're biblical, they're made by God. But I love the color, and I just, when I saw it on your social media platforms when you first put it out, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it. It's really cool. It's just, it really makes you think. Tony. Again,
Lara, well, thank you for that. Lara Helmling, we looked at some other different looks, and there was just like people walking down hallways, and they were interesting mock-ups. But this one jumped because dark to light. If you open it up, the back jacket is like a desert that moves into the front cover, which is sunlight and green grass. So there's decay moving into growth and life.
We are going to wrap this up because we have a part 2, and we're going to talk more about business coaching and what you have coming up next. Where can people find more information about your book? Where they can, where they can find it and learn more about Tony Rubleski?
A couple quick ways is go to our main page, mindcapturegroup.com, or if they're interested in the book, either volume 1 or 2, they're available at Amazon or at barnesandnoble.com.
All right, this is Pamela Keim from GRTV Media. We want to thank Tony Rubleski.
You're very welcome.
And
Appreciate
check his information, learn more about his books. And it is a great opportunity to go through quotes and self-reflect. So this is Pamela Keim once again, and we will see you next time on GRTV Media Business TV with part 2 with Tony Rubleski, and we're talking more business.
The opinions expressed in the preceding program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.